On this episode of The Real, I'm going to break down why the Cleveland Browns are now the San Diego Browns, and why, even if they remove Deshaun Watson, which they should probably, they still have big problems moving forward. I'm going to break it down and all that more next. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys are having a great week. Happy Thursday to you guys. If you're new here, please subscribe for me. Everybody hit the like button for me. You already know what time it is. It's the best way to help me promote this channel. We're off to a good start so far this season. Come join us on our Sunday Lives. That's our main show for the Browns. Every Sunday night, right around 8:30, we go live, and myself and a bunch of panels break down the game each Sunday, and we get into. We've had some great shows so far this season. Obviously, with the sad season we've had so far, as we sit at 1-4. But yeah, so check us out this Sunday and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you'll get alerted when we go live, and hit the like button for me and go check out those lives. But appreciate you guys for tuning in today. I want to start here today. So obviously we all know right now the Cleveland Browns season itself has been a disaster. They're 1-4, not a great start. And I call it a disaster because I really don't know what else to call it, because it's just been an absolute garbage product. They haven't scored more than 20 points in a game. The offense hasn't accumulated more than 300 total yards offense through 5 games. Um, it's been pretty bad. The defense has regressed, and I think a lot of why the defense has regressed is because the offense has been so bad. They're on the field a lot, but some of the defense has regressed. Some of the guys that this regime under Andrew Berry has drafted um, seem to be digressing, like Dawand Jones. Offensively not great in the draft. Some of the guys we drafted, Dawand Jones is a big. I'm gonna get in him in a minute. Why I think Dawand Jones might be unplayable right now. And also defensively, guys like Martin Emerson digressing this year, not looking as good. JOK looks great. Greg Newsom at times not great. Greg Delpit has some good games, and then he has some games like last week where he's missing tackles, not looking great. Um, D line's not looking great. So, nothing on his team outside of Corey Borges and JOK, in my opinion, look good. So, with all that being said, it obviously starts with the quarterback on the field. That's been the big topic this week. We all know that Deshaun Watson's been bad. He's been very bad this season. Has not been good. He's not even doing the basic things right. He's not hitting his layups. Doesn't look confident. Um, and right now, when I evaluate Deshaun Watson, I see a guy, forget even on the field, because we know how you can just look at the tape and how bad that's been. Even when before, forget on the field, before he even walks onto the field, off the field, I just think mentally, before he takes the field each game, and when you watch his play, he just looks like a guy who just mentally is just fried. Like, he's just not the same guy anymore. And just for all the stuff that's gone on with him in the last, was it 2 to 3 years, whatever it's been, that and then having a season-ending injury last year with a cherry on top of that, he just seems like a guy who just mentally is not confident and is just not what he used to be. He's a shell of what he used to be, in just terms of his confidence. And he just seems like a guy who's just out there. He just does not, like I said, does not look confident. You watch his footwork. That's the first thing when you evaluate a quarterback. Watch his footwork and just his base, and his mechanics right now are terrible. His footwork's terrible. He's not reading the field properly because of it. His eyes are all. He looks like a guy to me who's checked out of this situation. I don't think me personally, just based on what I've seen, the body language and stuff, I don't. He seems like a guy who maybe doesn't want to be here anymore. That if he could, he would rather go play somewhere else. Now, who would pick him up? Obviously, that's another question. With as bad as he's played, but and the contract, obviously, it's a big part of that. We'll get into that later in the show, but he just seems like a guy who's just not. I was hopeful when we traded for him that maybe he can get back to being that guy in Houston. Um, but he's just not having the guy I watched at Clemson, the guy at Houston who was confident. And not saying he was the greatest at both those places, but he was very good. He was elite at times, I thought, with just his skill set. He did what he did well. Great. He knew who he was as a quarterback back then. An athletic guy who could extend plays, likes to improvise a lot. Um, Maybe for me, not a quarter. I don't like my quarterback scrambles maybe as much as he does, but he was kind of like Houdini when he was in Houston at times, um, and even at Clemson. But when you watch him now with all this, he just does not look like the guy. Like I said, I don't think mentally, I don't think he'll ever get back to. I don't know if he'll ever get back to having that confidence. At least not here in Cleveland. It ain't happening, and it's just been bad. I mean, and then Brian Baldinger broke down a great piece here on his Twitter page. And it just here just kind of shows how bad it's been on this play. And here's Brian.
If you just wanted to see one play right here, to see the type of season that Deshaun Watson in Cleveland is having, it's this one. First down at the 7. Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy are going to run this crosser in the middle of the field. And really, that's all Deshaun needs to be looking at. You can't get any better protection. You're standing back there on a postage stamp and nobody's near you. And all you're doing is reading this mesh. And as soon as Washington doubles Amari Cooper and they leave Jerry Jeudy wide open, that's the throw. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. You run, whether you're in man or zone right here. I don't know if Washington even knows what they're in. But there's Jerry Jeudy with his hand up waving. And the quarterback does this. And you watch this and you go, why? Why? I mean, here it is. It's just this easy. Like here it is in the middle of the field. Jeudy and Amari. All right, what are they doing? That's all you need to be looking at. As soon as Washington does that, there's the throw with Jeudy up, hand up in the air. Like they have to make, Deshaun has to make this throw. Like you can't miss this. This is a gimme. It's a layup. But this is the worst thing that can happen. You sack yourself and you get crushed. You get chin music right there from Dorrance Armstrong. And it's totally unnecessary. I don't know what Judy's thinking about, but I'm sure he's frustrated.
And so, great analysis there by Brian Baldinger. And yeah, and you can see there with Deshaun. I mean, he's not even hitting the simple layup plays. That's a basic read, basic, mesh like crossing route, like you said. Jerry Judy's wide open coming off there, going to the left and for an easy touchdown. And he had time in the pocket that time and looked right at him. He didn't fire the ball. And one thing I've noticed with Deshaun too is when he gets locked in on his first read, if it's not open, he wants to just scramble. He wants to just try to improvise and kind of ad lib and freelance, and that's just not healthy quarterback play for your team, especially when you play in cold weather in the AFC North. You got to have a guy that could stand in that pocket, deliver the ball on time, go through his progressions, read the defense. You know, he's just not doing that, and like Brian said there too. It's a simple layup that he's not hitting, and to me, I think a lot of it, he just doesn't look confident. A guy that won't throw the ball in that situation, won't fire it, he's either just not reading it well because he's just not maybe that good at reading defenses. And I also think part of it too is he just looks like a guy who's just, like I said, the confidence just gone. He just, I've seen guys that are, yeah, hell, maybe I think PJ Walker last year would have fired that ball. But PJ Walker, when you watched him, yeah, he wasn't the most talented guy when he was here, but he was confident. He was confident in his abilities. That's the guy who went out there. He fought hard. That's what I liked about PJ last year was he just fought hard. I know one of the guys on our show, Maraska, we call him the president of the PJ Walker fan club. I'm sure he's happy I shouted out PJ today. But PJ Walker, probably not an NFL quarterback. Undersized, not the most talented, but he was a confident guy. He would try to, he would try to spin that ball in places at times. Maybe it got picked off. Sometimes it worked. Remember that 49ers game through that crazy pass to help them win that game. And, but Deshaun won't even do that. This guy you're paying $230 million, he won't even fire the ball in that situation. That's a big problem in itself. So we all know Deshaun Watson has been bad, right? And I think the Browns, if they could get out of it, should move on because I don't think it's never gonna work here. And it may not work ever with him. He might just be done totally. But as far as him ever resurrecting his NFL career, that's never gonna happen in Cleveland. And it's over with. And I think it's the Browns are just wasting time right now, but they're in a jam because of the contract. And so, what can they do about it? I don't know, but I'm gonna get into that down the road. But there's also some other problems. I'm gonna get into some more of the problems I have first. right? So that's problem number one. That's the obvious one, the quarterback. Problem number two I have when we break down the all 22 film, I put this play up here, and I talked about this earlier. Dawand Jones. Dawand Jones, in terms of just player development and I'm talking about guys that I want to see develop from rookies from last year, maybe from year 2 to year 3. I've seen a lot of guys regress, but the guy that's really been most alarming to me is Dawand Jones. Dawand Jones last year looked like a guy that was possibly going to be an all-pro one day when you go watch his tape last year. Dawand Jones is now a guy that looks unplayable, in my opinion. I don't know how you can keep Dawand Jones on the field much longer. If Jack Conklin comes back, I'm instantly putting Jack Conklin at right tackle. I know Jed's not the best at left, but Jed to me has been a lot more reliable at left when he's out there than Dawand Jones. Not saying much, but Dawand's been that bad. And you look at this play here from Dawand Jones. I mean, the line this year, whatever they're teaching on the offensive line, my gosh, Bill Callahan was a massive loss. And I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. But whatever they're teaching on the offensive line, it's just been absolute. I mean, this is a complete miscue here. We've seen a lot of these this year. Um, I know some people think maybe Deshaun should slide the protection. I've heard that people say that in certain shows and stuff that maybe he's not moving the protections where they need to be. I, I see this as a simple play. You have a guy lined up right over the left between the left guard and the center. Dawand Jones knows he has to block this end here, right? And Dawand Jones just completely doesn't even pick him up. I don't. So they blitz the backer, and the end's just left wide open. Is that Deshaun? Is that the pass protection and what they drew up itself pre-snap from the sideline with the coaching staff? I don't know, but it looks like to me that it's a miscue between Dawand Jones and Zach Zinner. Zach Zinner should be the one picking up that backer, blitzing in, and Dawand Jones should be getting the edge. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but uh, right here. I mean, the backer's right over Zinner. Well, why? I don't understand. I mean, it's just a complete miscue. But we've seen this from Dawand Jones all year. Just miscues, but also with Dawand, we've seen with other plays as well. I don't understand. Now, that play might be on Deshaun. That play might be, it looks like a miscue to me, a miscommunication, or it could be the play design itself. I don't know. But when I watch Dawand Jones, the more I've seen miscues this year, blatant miscues, but then also when you watch Dawand Jones, this is last year. I made this graph myself. And now people have wondered if he's 30 pounds heavier. He looks out of shape. Look at his stance last year on the right. That's in 2023, and he's got TJ Watt over him. And that exact play that I screenshotted, the play from last year against the Steelers, he pancakes TJ Watt. Absolutely just pancakes him. And he had actually a pretty decent game that night for a second start in his career. And you can see, look at his shoulders are parallel. His back foot's in line perfectly. He's in a good stance, good balanced stance. He's able to get off and use his hands and his size and be able to recover well. And he pancaked TJ Watt on that play. You watch this play here on the left. Mike and I broke this down. That was the Giants game this year. And that play, um, same guy he blocked right on the edge, and same wide 9. And you can see there his left shoulder's dipped down. His back foot is it's like tilted out, not in a athletic stance, in a balanced stance, and he got blown by on that play. And we've seen this a lot with Dawand Jones this year. He just the way he's even lining up pre-snap, like you see there, has just been awful. And he just gets blown by a lot. He is a big question mark for me moving forward. I'm really concerned about right tackle. Even if we put Jameis Winston out there, whoever, that is a big, big question mark with Dawand Jones. I don't know why he's digressed. I don't know what's going on. He's clearly not being coached hard on the sideline by Andy Dickerson. And that kind of goes back to Kevin Stefanski as well. We're going to get into that coaching staff stuff here in a minute. But something just seems wrong with this whole offensive line, and in particular with Dawand Jones. Dawand Jones is very alarming to me this year, how bad he's played. And you saw the play there that I showed. It could have been maybe Deshaun inside the protection, but he just doesn't. To me, it looked more like a miscue. They're not picking up blitz as well the line, and Dawand, like I said, he really stands out to me more than anybody. He has really regressed badly this year. I think right now, I don't know if I can put him out on the field right now because I can put the whole all 22 up. And we did go back and watch our Giants all 22 breakdown. We broke down every offensive play from that game. And it seemed like a lot of those plays, I don't put a percentage on it, but a lot of them, I kept saying, all right, Dawand's beat again. All right, Dawand's beat again. All right, Dawand's beat again. And the problem with that, too, is we're a team. Nobody's been in more empty sets than the Browns this year. The one game they went with the more heavy sets was the game they won against Jacksonville. And that's also a problem in itself. And I'm going to move on now to this part of the show and what I want to talk about. So there's been this play that's been popular over Twitter this week. A lot of people, some YouTubers have broken it down. Some people online have broken it down. And let me get the cue up here. 15 minutes and 40 seconds on the all 22. Give me 1 second here. But so this play, it was a third and long, which we've been in a lot of this year. And Deshaun Watson dropped back, and you see a guy running off. It was a dagger concept is what they were running. And so let me put this on the screen here. So this play has been heavily criticized this week by people online. I've seen a lot of different opinions about it, people breaking it down. And I have a different take on this play in some ways, a little bit, not all the way. I do agree with some people are saying. So let's watch the play here. So this is a dagger concept. So basically, Akins is going to run up the seam here. Jerry Jeudy's going to come up and run basically a dig inside. And Amari Cooper's just going to run an out route. And why I have a question is with the play design here as well, compared to what we would have saw last year, but I'm getting into that in a second. So let's watch the play here. So Deshaun drops back. Dawand Jones gets beat. But if you look at the play, Deshaun evades the pocket too early, scrambles out left just for a run right here. So this is where a lot of people have queued this week. What I see open on this play, Jordan Akins is not open on this play. He's got 1, 2, 3 guys. I don't see that play. The play is the Jeudy. That's really what the concept's for. It's a dagger concept. And so, yes, Jeudy, I believe, is open right there if the ball would have got out in time. But when you watch the play over, Deshaun hikes the ball, drops back, and as soon as he drops back, Judy's open. He just didn't fire it. He had time in the pocket. I know Dawand got beat, like I said, still, but he had enough time to deliver that ball. And he just didn't fire it. To me, Jeudy was open. And also, I don't understand why Deshaun didn't just, if you're going to scramble, at least just dump it down to the check down here. That guy's got enough space. He probably gets a first down. I mean, the first down marker's right here. He only has to run 3 yards. He could have got the first down. But he didn't. But there's also some other flaws on this play, too. If you look at the coverage, too, they're in a too high. So we've seen a lot of too high in the NFL this year. If you watch here, right, 2 safeties drop back last minute. So they're in a too high. Almost it looks like Tampa 2 to me. And so basically, there's a way you attack this play in the play design itself. I'm not a big fan of this play design, how they designed this play either, which is why, yes, Deshaun missed Jerry Jeudy. We understand that. He blatantly missed him there. But what I also don't like either is how they've designed this offense this year. This offense the Browns are running this year, like Sean Keynes, who former NFL quarterback, I'm going to play a couple of his audios today, what he said about their offense. This offense is very elementary. It's very, very generic. It has no identity. The route concepts are bad. We've seen guys run it into each other, receivers. I have a picture of that from the Raiders game. The spacing and the receivers is horrible. The concepts are horrible. The running scheme's terrible. This offense, whatever it is that we're running this year, is absolute garbage. And so, yes, Deshaun misses Jerry Jeudy there, right? We see that. But my thing is, okay, let's say we put Jameis Winston in down the road, right? Let's say we put Jameis at quarterback. People will say, well, Jameis is going to deliver that ball. I think now the Commanders, to me, is probably one of the worst. I think they had the worst passing defense in the league. Or it was like one of the worst passing defenses going into the game last Sunday. And they were horrible on third down, and that was a third down play. My critique on that play as well is Jordan Akins did not do well on that play. And I'm going to show you why in a minute. I'm going to show this clip of somebody breaking down the dagger concept, right? So I want you guys to watch this. It's a couple minutes. Watch how the dagger concept is supposed to be played here. You can see on the screen there, Akins, as you can see, I'll break it down real quick too. What this guy's going to explain in this video on this play, Akins was supposed to, he ran up the seam like this, right? But against cover 2, which they showed in cover 2, and I think they rolled the coverage last minute, usually you want your guy to veer off and go middle of the field because it draws, you want him to draw this defender down, or just give me the veer off. And when it goes into cover 2, you want him to go veer off the seam route, to the middle of the field, which opens up this backside more. Now, if they're in cover 1 or cover 3, you want them to keep going on the seam because he'll take whoever's back here with him, which opens up the dagger concept again. But also on display too, you notice, look, they have a drag route underneath, which we did not have on that play. We didn't have a drag route on that play. But here's the dagger concept, and he's going to break it down on an NFL film, all 22, showing a team in the NFL executing that exact same play. And I watched the difference in the play itself and how we executed it.
The dagger concept is a longer developing play that attacks the middle of the field. Small adjustments can be made within the concept to attack multiple coverages, and it's a great play against both 1 and 2 safety looks. It includes 2 primary routes. The inside receiver is running a vertical route, and the outside receiver is running a deep dig or square in route at 16 to 18 yards. That front side combination is usually paired with a shallow drag on the backside of the play. That drag is run at about 2 to 3 yards flat across the field. The drag and dig combination creates a high-low read. The vertical route is designed as a clear out with the intention of pulling as many deep players with it as possible. As a result, the vertical route can change based on the coverage of the defense. Against cover 1 or cover 3, the vertical route can stay on their seam line and occupy the center field safety along with any seam defenders. Against any too high looks, like cover 2 or cover 4, the vertical route needs to bend inside on an influence post to pull the play side safety. In a best case scenario, that bend inside can also influence the far safety as well as the near one. The dagger works to attack the underneath defenders. The goal is to create a high-low read between the drag and the dig over the top of it. If that drag pulls linebackers down, there's a window to the dig behind. If linebackers get depth, the drag has space to run underneath. With the vertical defenders occupied, that can leave a huge opening for a yards after catch opportunity. This is an extra clean coverage read here because the Raiders are blitzing. Note how the seam from the number 2 receiver pulls both his man in coverage and occupies the deep defender. With the linebackers blitzing, that leaves nobody to defend the dig route. The receiver has inside leverage on his corner, and it's a wide open throw. Next here with the Panthers, there's still a single safety, but Robbie Anderson reads that the safety is overshifted to the 2 receiver side. That means that he needs to bend inside of the safety so that he pulls him away from the dig route and threatens the weakness of the defense in this alignment, which is the middle of the field. The linebacker is occupied by the release from the running backs into the flats, and there's a nice window for the dig behind it. For the quarterback, the read is pretty simple. They want to confirm that the deep safety has been occupied, and then they want to read the linebacker on the high-low between the dig and the drag. When linebackers sink underneath the deep dig, the shallow drag underneath is a good outlet. That drag is also useful for dumping the ball off since dagger is a longer developing play. It's rare, but when the safety or deep defender doesn't carry the vertical route, there's an opportunity for a big play there. When you hit the dig enough, safeties may come down on it. That creates your opportunity to hit them over the top. That's why as a quarterback, you always need to confirm that the deep safety has been occupied by the vertical before throwing. The dagger concept is used mainly at the college and NFL levels, but offers an opportunity for offenses to get chunk yardage against any coverage. It gives a clear read for the quarterback and uses a high-low spacing concept to exploit linebackers in coverage.
Okay, so that's how the dagger concept is supposed to be executed as explained there. Now, if we go back to our play that we ran on Sunday, that a lot of people have been talking about, as you can see, like I said, Deshaun clearly misses him on the dig route itself. But what I want to see in the future going forward, which is why I don't really understand some of the concepts, what I want to my point here about this play, on top of Deshaun missing the drag route to Jerry Judy, is I want to see more down the road. If we put Jameis Winston or whoever down the road in the future, but I don't. We'll get into more of this in a second. I'd like to see somebody running a drag route across the middle of the field. We send nobody on a drag route across the middle of the field. We just run two guys out and delay, and they chip the edges, and then they go out for basically like a check downs. That I don't. Nobody's running across the field. I don't understand that. I don't understand why some of our concepts in this playbook. If we have somebody running across the field, let's say over here or over here from this way, usually the opposite side, you know what I mean? It draws possibly this guy's attention. Now you can see here, like the guy said, the gentleman broke it down there. Akins is taking the high safety, which opens up the dig. But I want to see something underneath too. Because I think a better defense as well, this guy, if he's a little more over here, that may not be open because by the time the ball gets there, this guy gets leveled. But if you have a guy going underneath, look at all the space. You know, I mean, you could still get a first down out of that running off of this way. Look at the space. If you had a guy running the opposite side of the field like it's supposed to be designed, which we did last year, and which is I'm getting to a bigger point here in a second, folks, of why I'm bringing this play up in a deeper level outside of just Deshaun missing the throw. I want to see somebody running a drag route underneath because it would have been wide open for a first down as well. Easy run because look how far back this guy is. That's an easy first down with somebody running in stride. And all they have to do is put the ball right out in front of them and run them, keep them going in stride. It's a first down. So some of our play design and concepts this year, how we're designing these plays, whatever Ken Dorsey brought in, because see, this didn't go on last year with Kevin Stefanski when in that old offense. That old offense last year, we ran that play, that exact play. The dagger concept a lot of times is ran more out of play action, right? Because it sinks more of the defense down, which opens up the dagger more. And we're not running a lot of play action this year. We're in gun most of the time. We're an empty set more than anybody else in the league. And that play there, we're an empty set, and some of the concepts and the route concepts just to me are still kind of off when I watch it. Yeah, he should have hit Judy on the dig, but even still, to me, it's just kind of like, why are we running two guys? You know what I mean, doing the same thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Some of this offense we're running is horrible, and even if we put Jameis Winston in, you still got a bad right tackle. That's a big issue in a line that's playing terrible, and you also still have an offense itself that's been created by, I'm assuming, Ken Dorsey. That and with Kevin Stefanski calling the plays in an offense he's never called in before, which is a whole nother thing. It's bad. The offense is bad. Like the concepts are bad. And defenses, as the season goes on, when they're scouting you, they're going to start picking up on some of those things and seeing how bland it is. And it's going to make it easier for defenses down the road in games you have to win late November and December. Yes, and so this offense in itself is horrible, and it makes me think. Like I said, last year we would have ran that out of play action. We would have been under center more, and we were a top 10 offense last year. We had great success. And I'm really curious, why did we change the offense? You know, why did we change the offense? And last year was just we saw guys running drag routes underneath last year, and that dagger concept. We're not, and in the past 4 years with Kevin's old system. But why did we change it this year? We're an empty set. We're running the same concept, and it just looks bland. It looks, how I broke it down. It just looks bland. It looks sloppy. Guys not, it looks unorganized. It just looks. I'm speechless even looking. I'm looking at the replay again on the side screen here, guys, and it's just absolute garbage. And again, here's how the dagger concept a deep dig by number 1, a seam post by number 2, which was Akins, and a drag from the backside. There was no drag from the backside on our concept. And as you can see there, the vertical route is designed to clear out the intention of pulling as many deep players with it as possible. As a result, the vertical route could change based on the coverage. Against cover 1 or cover 3, the vertical route can stay on their seam line and occupy the center field safety, along with any seam defenders. Against any too high looks, cover 2, cover 4, the vertical route needs to bend inside, which when I was saying earlier before I showed the video, Akins does not bend inside here. They're too high. And you watch Akins here, he should bend inside now. He doesn't bend inside. So he took this safety, but if Akins would bend inside more, see, this is another detail down the road, in my opinion, and you just saw it said there on the screen. If Akins bends inside more, because his job is to take as many guys up high, away from the dagger, right, away from the dig as possible. If he leans inside, he probably takes this guy with him, which opens this up more. This safety's dropped back. The dig's right here. Or excuse me, right there. It opens it up. But our offense, just in terms of design and detail, to me, just does not look, even basic concepts that we executed greatly last year, we're not executing this year. And the design just looks bad. I don't understand. Are we chipping 2 guys? And I mean, why are we having 2 guys block? Is it because our O-line's that bad? I mean, where's the drag route underneath? I don't get it. But again, Sean Kane, I thought, said it perfectly. You know, we all agree we need to move on from Deshaun. You know, I think those days are over here. But I thought Sean Kane this week, he was on the All the Cleveland Sports Show yesterday, and shout out to them. I thought he nailed it perfectly. And here's what Sean Kane had to say yesterday.
Put that in my notes right now.
Yeah.
That's going to be the title of my book.
If you're Kevin Stefanski and you bench
I'm panicking
Deshaun
in my panic
Watson,
room.
and you guys don't immediately become a top tier offense, you've doomed yourself.
Woo! Talk to him about why that is.
Because right now you're operating with a lot of grace. I don't know what it is about Stefanski, because he has had some success in Cleveland, but he has not gotten the quarterback position fixed. And Baker Mayfield having success kind of, to me, taints it just a little bit, but he's operating right now with a significant crutch, because it's much easier to blame Deshaun Watson than it is to pick apart the fallacies and what they're trying to do offensively. And again, I keep saying going back to Deshaun because he's missing his layups. But schematically, pass protection-wise, from a organic mesh, the offense is not very good right now from a design standpoint. Mm. And so if you're the head coach, you do run the risk now. If you eliminate what everybody thinks is the problem and the offense is still bad, you're head on the chopping block next.
Good. Well,
yeah. And that's why I broke that play down again, too, at an even deeper level, because everybody's talking about Deshaun. First off, some people, I've seen some people on the internet that have broken that down that thought Akins was open. I don't personally think Akins, I would have threw it to Akins on that play in the triple coverage. But again, the design itself, and like Sean Kane, former NFL quarterback, just said how I broke, and I showed you guys really some of the design, how it's flawed, and how the dagger concept's supposed to be really ran. We're not even doing that. And so, but again, like, let me go back to what I said to my main point. I'm getting to my main point now. Why we're the San Diego Browns. Last year, that play, we saw guys running in the dagger concept, running the drag route, right? It looked a lot more. That offense last year, we were more under center, more play action, which is a lot of that concepts used out of that Joe Flacco executed perfectly last year with Stefanski's system. Why did we change that system? Why did you change a system last year that had 5 different quarterbacks and you made the playoffs with it, and Joe Flacco came in through for 300 yards, I think, almost every game, and you were, I think, top 10 offense in the league? Why did you change that offense? What changed? I don't understand what changed. I don't truly believe Kevin Stefanski would have changed his offense, because even Deshaun Watson last year, before he got hurt, looked better in that old system than he did. Wasn't great, but he looked decent at times. I mean, I thought the Ravens game looked really good in that second half. And again, the week before that against the Cardinals, he had a great. I thought he had a pretty good game, great game, almost 300 yards. I think he was over 300 yards that game. He looked pretty good. That old system, Kevin proved was successful with the quarterbacks he had, with different styles of quarterbacks. You had PJ Walker, you had DTR, both complete, and Deshaun Watson. All three completely different from Joe Flacco and Jacoby Brissett. Mainly Joe Flacco, who's more of an older style traditional quarterback, 6'6", can stand in the pocket, big stature, right? That offense showed, and Kevin Stefanski showed with Alex Van Pelt and Bill Callahan that they can make it work with just about any style quarterback, and have success with it, which they did. And Deshaun was much better in that system last year. But why did this system change? And remind you, Deshaun Watson, when he signed here or chose to come to Cleveland via trade, he said out of his mouth verbatim, one of the biggest reasons why, we all know, was the guaranteed money. But he said, take his word, I'm just saying what he said, that he was fascinated with Stefanski's system and that he liked Stefanski's scheme. Remember, they said they sat in the meeting room in Houston when they were going through the whole process, and him and Stefanski basically talked to each other the whole time. Haslam and Andrew Berry just sat basically and just watched them, listen to them talk. I think Jason Lloyd wrote the article on this, and how Deshaun was very fascinated with Stefanski's style of play, his scheme, his system. He liked it, and some of the different concepts he was using out of Stefanski's old system that he brought with him here to Cleveland, had success with. And they dominated the run game as well with that system. And so what changed, right? What changed, and why? And how can we expect this system now to work with any quarterback? Because I don't think you can. You have a bad right tackle. You have a bad, you have bad offense, bad concepts, like Sean King said. And not only Sean King did he say it, Josh Cribbs, former Browns legend, who I actually see on Friday nights at the Hoban game. Shout out to you, Josh. He broke it down too. Listen to what Josh Cribbs, another former NFL player, talking about. Yes, you can remove Deshaun Watson, like he says here, but the house is still on fire.
To pick with the James Watson. We got so many fires that we need to put out before that. So putting Judy in with a Winston who didn't get live reps, now they got to take a couple games to get on the same page.
If anything, I mean, you can't get worse than their offense right now. From perspective, their offense is less efficient than they were with Deshaun Kaiser. When they went 0-16. They go backwards more than they go forward. The drop passes, the horrible throws by Deshaun Watson, and there are some good ones. I understand that. It's something you has to get.
I just say, changing the kitchen out while the house is still burning. You burn up that new kitchen. Like if I put a new kitchen in the house and then this room on fire, the living room still burning up, and it's only a matter of time for it to get to the kitchen again. Now that kitchen is on fire. Now the kitchen like, man, I was new. And now I'm getting hit because such and such won't block, such and such won't block, and the runner can't run. They still blitzing. Now what? Now we're going to be calling for a trade from Flacco. Now we're going to be calling for DTR. That's my only bone to pick with the James Watson. We got so many fires that we need to put out before that.
100%. And I like how he analogized there. Deshaun Watson's the kitchen. The kitchen's on fire. The whole house is on fire. We're 1-4. But Deshaun Watson's the kitchen. So we can get rid of the kitchen, put a new one in, right? But like he said, that new kitchen's still going to be on fire. Jameis Winston could be the new kitchen. Jameis Winston's going to catch on fire with how things are structured right now and how this offense that we've installed, I don't see how any quarterback be successful with it. If we would have ran this same offense last year with the 5 quarterback thing, the carousel we had of quarterbacks last year, we would not have been the team we were last year. That older system Stefanski ran was a lot more quarterback friendly, and the designs, like the dagger concept I showed you, were just a lot more. They were constructed the way they should have been. Plays were ran well. Things were more organized. The design of the plays were a lot better. They committed to the run game more. We're not doing that. But what changed? Why are we the San Diego Browns now? And it just makes me think. I went back and did some research, and I found this report from 2022. And it's a screenshot. I screenshotted this yesterday. I'm going to play a video here in a minute. And it says, I'm going to go to Paul DePodesta now, right? Why is this called the San Diego Browns? And I'm gonna key in on that guy right there on the left. I have some questions about him because I truly don't believe Kevin Stefanski would have changed his offense if that was his offense last year that he had 5 guys successful in, 5 different quarterbacks, and they made the playoffs. Why would he want to change that? If anything, he should be promoting it more. He's the guy that was the guy behind it. Why would he want to change his offense? Why would he want to fire Alex Van Pelt, who he and Alex Van Pelt were very close, and Van Pelt loved being here. He was fine with that role of not calling plays. Him and Stefanski were on the same page. Bill Callahan, same page with those guys. Had an unbelievable, one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. Great running scheme. Maybe the greatest line coach of all time, according to some. I'm pointing the finger now at Paul DePodesta. Paul DePodesta is a guy who lives in San Diego, is never in Cleveland, but he's the chief strategy officer and he's got a big role. They gave him an extension in 2021. And remind you, in my opinion, the best Browns team I've seen in terms of offensively, in terms of balance. I think Flacco had the best pass attack last year, but I still think 2020 with Baker, when they had Hunt and Chubb, and Landry was still a pretty good receiver at that time, Njoku, they had a pretty good balanced attack offense that year. They ran the ball well. They had an identity. They made the playoffs, all in the divisional round. I think they were the best running team in the league. The offensive line was the best in the year, maybe the best in the NFL that year. And they had an identity. Paul DePodesta gets an extension. He was already in the building, but he gets an extension in 2021. And I don't know if in that extension, if he got more power, if he requested more power, but there's a lot of speculation right now that when the Browns hired Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry back in 2020, that basically they had to fall under the guard of, it was Haslam's, Paul DePodesta, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski. And so who is Paul DePodesta and why does he have this much power in an organization? Does he really deserve that? And is he a problem in this whole situation? And so going back to the offense now, why would you change that offense you had success in last year and the concepts were way better and everything? You were a top 10 offense in the league. You made the playoffs with Joe Flacco. And it makes me go back to this. And you read this here. Paul DePodesta has pretty much convinced owner Jimmy Haslam that the only way to build a Super Bowl team is by consistently throwing for, quote, explosive plays in the passing game. Apparently, no matter the weather conditions. Stefanski and offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt will insist that their system is rooted in the run game, but that is true only to the extent that the Browns desire an effective running game, essentially, to set up a play action passing game. Eventually, they want those play action passes to be more frequently laden with deep shots downfield, and that is where Deshaun Watson comes in. The bottom line is Stefanski's job is safe because he is completely adhering to DePodesta's advanced statistics or analytics models and not resisting them. Disagreeing or rejecting DePodesta's research will be Stefanski's quickest ticket out of town. That's from Tony Grossi. And a lot of people gave Tony Grossi shit about this article back then. And I went and found, I remember when this article came out, right? A lot of people, Orleans fans and some of the people in the media, there was a lot of the same sentiment about this article. And I found this clip last night. This is Quincy Carrier on a local show here in Cleveland that covers the Browns, kind of giving his take on it when this came out at the time. This was a lot of the sentiment, how a lot of fans and media people took this.
Playing a major role in game planning. You see, this is from a Tony Grossi Land on Demand article that analytics and Paul DePodesta, not really a football guy. The research and analytics have been a large part of the game plans. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, if this is true, how concerning is that Paul DePodesta and the analytics crew are major factors in game planning?
I think it depends on how that information is getting out, but I don't think in the way that it's been presented, it's really that much of a concern, to be honest with you. Most teams have analytics be a part of their major planning. From everything that I've seen that's been out there, and this story has kind of been floating around there around out here for like the last 3 years. Everything that I see is like, hey, they just want to make sure that they're sticking with the trends that are working in the league and that they're keeping up with that. I don't think this is necessarily, hey, Kevin, we're going to run stick 32 times this week, or we're going to run out of empty and we need to be out of this formation. These are just basic guardrails. They're like, hey, let's make sure we don't fall behind the rest of the league. Let's make sure that we are doing what everybody else is doing and what's working around the league at a high clip, at a high efficiency rate. And if we're not, let's find ways to work that in there. Every good team in the NFL does this. I mean, this is something that Bill Belichick has been doing for a while, where he incorporates this. It's not as big of a story because Bill kind of controls everything, but analytics play a huge role in his success. When he was with Brady, he was one of the early adopters of it. So this is not, look, I get it at this point of the year when you hear John D. Podesta, non-football guy, used to work for baseball. He is, and it sounds like he's telling the football people what to do, but this is not what's happening, right? His job has always been to give suggestions. This is an analytics-based front office and coaching staff, so they're going to be listening to this information regardless. They're just getting better versions of it. And let's be fair, as much as we want to call John D. Podesta not a football guy, every suggestion that has come to light of his that the Browns did not follow was followed up by a football guy making an absolute disastrous decision, right? We can go back to Teddy Bridgewater, remember the analytical report that they spent like $2 million on that told them to draft Teddy Bridgewater instead of Johnny Manziel. They go with Johnny Manziel, ends up being a disaster. Sean McDermott not getting hired over Hugh Jackson. And then there's, Kevin Stefanski not getting hired over Freddie Kitchens, famous football guy. John Dorsey died on the hill to keep that one alive, right? So we can label him however we want, but like his decisions have been correct more often than they've not. And if you look at the last 3 years where he's had more control, this team's been over 500 in that 3-year stretch. So yeah, I don't think this is freak out panic words.
Okay, so that was a lot of the sentiment that was being what Quincy Carrier said there. That's what a lot of people in the media I heard at that time saying when this report came out by Tony Grossi, that it wasn't that big of a deal. He's not telling Stefanski what to do, and they were even saying that publicly as well. But I really question that now, because when you look at this report, I thought Tony Grossi nailed this right on the head, and he got a lot of shit at this time, like for putting this out there. People were saying, "Oh, he's just anti-analytics." Number one, the last part there, disagreeing with rejected D. Podesta's research will be Stefanski's quickest ticket out of town. I think that's more true now than ever, because when you look at the Brown situation this year, people are asking themselves this week, why can't Deshaun Watson, or why can't Kevin Stefanski bench Deshaun Watson? Kevin Stefanski came out and emphatically said after the game last Sunday that he will not be benching Deshaun Watson. He reiterated and solidified it on Monday. Why is that? And does he really have the authority to do that? Because anybody watching this team right now would say they really have nothing to lose at this point with how bad he's playing. And also going back to the offense as well, Kevin Stefanski, he's calling plays in an offense that's not his offense. He's never called plays in this type of scheme and offense before. But does he really have the autonomy to make the changes? Does he have the autonomy to change the quarterback? Does he have the autonomy to maybe go back to some of his old scheme and more heavier sets? Now, like the gentleman on the screen there said, he doesn't believe that they're telling him to do that. That was back in 2022. I'm not putting words in the guy's mouth now, but I just played that clip because that clip was a lot of what people thought I heard in the media back then when this report came out, right? And then around that same time, an article came out by Jonathan Jones, and I played this. Everyone's watched my show on the lives the last 3 weeks. I've been putting this up on there. This is from Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. It says there could be well coaching staff changes this offseason for the Browns, and there could be some tweaks to the offensive philosophy as well. Team owner Jimmy Haslam is a University of Tennessee alumnus who has clearly watched the air raid offense the Volunteers have installed to great success in the SEC. Cleveland has the third most rushing yards of all the NFL teams over the past 5 seasons, with one of the league's best rushing duos in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But Hunt has since become an unrestricted free agent this spring, and the Browns have a quarterback of Watson who led the NFL in passing his last full season as a starter. And so I read this report. That's from two different sources now, from Jonathan Jones and from Tony Grossi. And then yesterday, Jay Crawford on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, I believe, read another report from somewhere else that basically talked about how when Stefanski and Barry were hired, they had to align with Paul DePodesta. And so now we have three different sources telling you what's really going on here and why we are now the San Diego Browns. Paul DePodesta is a guy who lives in San Diego. He's never in the building during the week. He lives all the way across country, and he has this kind of authority and power over a team. And so going back to the Tony Grossi report, at the end there, Stefanski's job is safe because he is completely adhering to DePodesta's advanced statistics or analytics models and not resisting them. Disagreeing or rejecting DePodesta's research would be Stefanski's quickest ticket out of town. And going back up top too, there where it's not highlighted, Stefanski and OC Alex Van Pelt will insist that their system is rooted in the running game. Okay. And you're going back to this here, Cleveland has the third most rushing yards of all NFL teams over the past 5 seasons. And so again, we could say that they were over 500 because of Paul DePodesta having more power, but I would say they were over 500 because Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt came in and identified what they are good at, which was a rushing attack, which they did not do in 2019. They just threw the ball around the lot in 2019. And they brought in, and Stefanski and Van Pelt brought in an identity of a rushing attack, and then they started going over 500 more and making the playoffs for the first time in 2020 and forever. Because they ran the ball. You're in the AFC North. They know the identity of their offense and who they had on the roster at that time. And they're in the AFC North and they're playing in cold weather. You got to run the ball. But we're trying to get away from that now. And I keep going back to this report from Jimmy Haslam and what Tony Grossi said. It's very clear to me what has happened. And what has happened is these changes that they wanted, these 3 slides that I just read you, okay, going back to this one here, they wanted coaching staff changes. This was written in December of 2022 when all this came out, right? So almost 2 years ago. Now go back to last season. It was still Van Pelt. It was still Callahan. It was still Kevin's old system. I think what happened is ownership wanted this 2 years ago because Paul DePodesta wanted it. He was getting in their ear, the analytics guy, and talked Jimmy Haslam into this air raid attack, right? And so I think they gave Kevin Stefanski 1 more year to try to mesh it on his own with Deshaun, which was last year. And I think Kevin kept a lot of his old offense last year. And I think before you go back before Deshaun got hurt, they were starting the Cardinals game and the Ravens game. They were starting to kind of figure it out a little bit with Deshaun in terms of the balance between the rushing game. Go look at their rushing yards in that Ravens game. I think Jerome Ford ran the ball pretty well that day. They ran the ball well that day. Remember that last play to set up the field goal? It was the line of scrimmage, bulldozing their line of scrimmage down the field to set up Dustin Hopkins for the game-winning field goal. They were starting to find that balance. And Deshaun Watson really liked Kevin's offense and Alex Van Pelt. And they had success with it. And then you see what they did after with the quarterback carousel and my guy and Joe Flacco coming in, throwing for 300 yards a game, making the playoffs. Why would you change that? Why would you still you cannot convince me Kevin Stefanski wanted to make these changes. And why was there a delay in his contract extension the whole offseason? Remember that was in the Ultimate Sports Show. Shout out to those guys because they were saying it all offseason. Why is there this delay? Why is there this delay? They didn't get the contract extensions done. If they're your guys, you should have signed them in February or March. It should have been done just like that. There should have been no delay all the way to June. Don't give me this bullshit. Oh, we want to wait till the draft to be over. We want to wait for free agency. No, you want it done before that so it's done and off the table. It's not in the back of anybody's mind. That's like common sense. But why was it delayed? And why has Kevin Stefanski's contract negotiations not been disclosed publicly? And like Dustin Fox said yesterday, who's been in the NFL, usually they are. Like, we don't know those. And usually those are disclosed. Now, they don't have to be, but usually you know. They just said it was a multi-year extension and blah, blah, blah. A bunch of bullshit. I think what happened was they gave Kevin Stefanski 1 more year last year. And it worked last year. That's what I don't understand. But they were so hell-bent on putting it. And Paul DePodesta has convinced Jimmy Haslam so much that what they need to do with this report that Tony Grossi reported and that Jonathan Jones put on CBS Sports and other sources have vindicated as well. He has completely convinced Jimmy Haslam that they need to do this change. And that change that says right there on the scene, this is what happened this offseason. What happened this past offseason? Coaching staff changes all over the place, a tweak in offensive philosophy, and they've gone completely air raid. They're the most they're the most team, and nobody's an empty more than the Cleveland Browns statistically in the league so far this season, and they're 1-4 and a disaster. And you saw the offense I showed you earlier. But if you don't believe that, here's a Didi Kingablala, sideline reporter for CBS, who has a good relationship with Kevin Stefanski. Also on the Alta Cleveland Sports Show this week. If they're killing it this week, shout out to those guys. Shout out to Earl, G. Bush, and all them, and Dustin. Great show, guys. You guys are on top of this. Here's a Didi Kingablala this week, and what she had to say here when asked, does Kevin Stefanski have the autonomy to, if he wanted to bench Deshaun and put Jameson? I thought what Aditi said here was very, very telling.
On a lighter note, I think it's, like Tyber said, like you mentioned it with the 5 different quarterbacks. Hey, look, sometimes our boss says, no, you can't do that. You got to find a different way to skin a cat. You can't take the quarterback out yet. All right, well, here's one thing I can control. I'm scrapping that whole playbook. Let me go back to what I know, something easier. Nick Chubb is coming back. We can run the ball a little more. I think they got to go back to the drawing board on what they're teaching up front and how they're going about running the ball. But don't you think it's an obvious move to kind of shift gears when it comes to the playbook? Because right now, what they've been trying to install or work with the last 2 years with the shotgun stuff, it's just not tenable at this point.
And again, do they have full autonomy to do that? Or is there a group in that building that thinks a 3-yard run, a 4-yard run is not an efficient play? Is there a segment
is this year
that building that thinks that, they need to pass more? That's a movement in the National Football League, not just there. And I don't buy into that. I certainly am old school. I think that those 3- and 4-yard runs in the first quarter very often turn into 12 and 15 and 40-yard runs in the third and fourth quarter. I believe in the cumulative effect of going at a defense. I believe in physical play. I think in the AFC North, that's how you need to do that. But there are people that think you need more. And obviously they make a lot more money than I do, those people. So who am I to say this?
No, you are.
But I said it to you guys. I said it to you guys last week. Look, I think Nick Chubb is the best player on that offense. I think the offense should run through Nick Chubb. But that's just me. I don't know that Kevin Stefanski has full autonomy over. I think, again, he often talks about how they are very collaborative there, which I think is a very nice way of saying that there are a lot of people that have input.
Aditi, just because they're making more money doesn't mean they're more qualified.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bull. Yeah, totally. We're seeing that play out here in Cleveland. But I got a lot to get into here. Everything she said there was 100% correct. He does not have the full autonomy to do what he wants to do. He can't run the offense he wants to run. Telling a guy that we don't believe in 3-4 yard runs, we're like, well, she broke it down beautifully there. And I've played football growing up, and I played center. If you want your offensive line to really dominate the line of scrimmage throughout a game, you have to let them impose their will. How do you impose your will? In the run game, because it's downhill. It's man on man, mano a mano. Right? Pass protection is a lot different. It's protection. You're moving backwards a lot of times. You're keeping the defenders. But to impose your will on the line of scrimmage and force guys downhill, like that game last year in that play I brought up against the Ravens, where we set up the Dustin Hopkins game-winning field goal, you have to let them impose their will. He doesn't have the autonomy to do that. No wonder why our O-line's terrible this year, too, in some ways. And I think what they're teaching up front is bad as well this year, and there's a lot of other things there, like I showed with Dawand Jones earlier, but you don't even let them impose their will. When you watch this Browns team, everything, it's his pass, drop back, analytics, air raid, which is exactly what ownership wanted them to do. And then you got a quarterback who, like I said earlier, just mentally is just not confident, not as good anymore, and he makes it look 10 times worse. And so, and he can't even do the basic things either, which that's a whole nother thing, which is why I said they probably should move on. But how, I don't know, but they should. But they got a whole bigger problem. They have become the San Diego Browns now. This is Paul DePodesta's team now. This is Paul DePodesta's offense. This is Paul DePodesta's philosophy that has completely taken over the Cleveland Browns now. And it's an absolute shit show. And like she said there, Kevin Stefanski, they're telling, I cannot believe when I heard this, they're telling a guy, not only can you not bench somebody, even though you're the head coach and the play caller, but you're the head coach, it's supposed to be your team, but also we don't want you running the ball more on those 3-4 yard carries. Yeah, we don't want that. Hey, maybe you should run the ball more on first down so you're not and get first and second down. Football is situational. Football is not a calculator. It's not a TI-84 calculator. It's not an equation. Football is situational. First and second down go together. Third down is a situation in itself because you have to convert the third down, right? And so red zone's a situation in itself. It's a situational game, right? It's a chess match. It's being a puppet master, right? That's why those 3-4 yard runs, they add up throughout the game. Later on in the fourth quarter, we saw in that Ravens game last year, they turned into monster runs. Your low lines imposing their will. You defeated them physically in the game and you win. We don't do that now. We are a Paul DePodesta-led San Diego Browns offense now. And it's a freaking dumpster fire. And you can't say Kevin, because guess what? This report that Tony Grossi put out 2 years ago that people smugged at, it's right. It's being proven correct right now. That last paragraph right there, the last highlighted part, it's a fancy job to say because he, where it talks about disagreeing or rejecting DePodesta's research would be Stefanski's quickest ticket out of town. We're seeing this play out right now. It's clear as day. Aditi King-Abala just said it. And then yesterday, Sean King, to follow it up, let me pull this up here on the audio because I can't put I don't want to copy any right or anything. Fair use. Yesterday, Sean Kane as well, let me see if I can find it here, brought up this clip as well about Deshaun Watson and how he had talked to Deshaun Watson privately. And I thought this was interesting what Deshaun's camp is now saying to people privately. He didn't talk to Deshaun Watson directly, but he talked to people in Deshaun Watson's camp. So let me clarify, sir. I was multitasking there. But so this is Sean Kane again yesterday about what he heard from Watson's camp.
In just a couple hours.
It's not Dan Orlovsky breaking down the Jets offense. I am going right to the source. And listen, Deshaun, I know you've had your people reach out to me, but brother, look at here. Truth doesn't have emotions. You're not going to like this one.
Whoa. Hold on. Deshaun's people have reached out to you?
I don't know via from him, but.
But what, it was Quincy?
No.
You wouldn't.
I think I'll say this. I think Quincy, and Quincy didn't reach out to me. I think Quincy gets a bad rap as far as his control of Deshaun Watson.
Did you talk? Did you reach back to these people or no?
I think Deshaun Watson's a grown man. I don't think Deshaun Watson listens to anybody but Deshaun Watson.
And Quincy coached not thousands, but he coached 7-8 other quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think he gets I agree with you, G. I don't think this is Deshaun going to Quincy for seeking comfort, I call it. I just think Deshaun is kind of, he's a general with no army right now.
Can I ask you why, what was the purpose of someone in Deshaun's camp reaching out to you? What did they want from you?
But first of all, they said I'm doing a hell of a job.
Good.
So it wasn't like it was actually like, shit, I wish, excuse me, I wish.
You're good, Sean, don't worry.
I wish you would actually pay more attention to it.
You said that?
But I did. But I did get the sense that everything's not perfect communication-wise between him, staff, and what they're trying to get done. I do think there's a significant disconnect. But at the end of the day, man, look, to whom much is given, much is required, fellas. When you're in that pocket, as G was talking about, and it's clean and guys are open, you got to hit them.
100%. And now, what he said there at the end, I totally agree with. Deshaun's not hitting those easy layups like Sean King was saying. He's not hitting those, which is why, again, I said earlier, I think it's time to move on. I don't think he's ever going to be the guy we need him to be. He's not even playing average quarterback play right now. He might be, I think, statistically the worst quarterback in the league. But what he said there, though, I thought was interesting from Deshaun's camp, which we know it's from Deshaun. What he said there, which was, he said there is a big disconnect. That's what he said at the end there. There's a big disconnect between the quarterback, staff, and what they want to get done. Now, who's pushing what they want to get done? I believe what I showed earlier, which it seems to be clear as day, is to me, it's coming from the Paul Podesta-led San Diego Browns philosophy now. And I'm just telling you, I've seen some people today and other places saying it's Deshaun versus Watson all week. This is Kevin Stefanski, or excuse me, not Deshaun versus Watson. Excuse me, Deshaun versus Stefanski. I think this is Kevin Stefanski versus Paul Podesta, and Deshaun Watson's really just somebody that's going to be out of town eventually. But that's really the two I'm looking at. And you hear what Sean, if you heard what Aditi Kinkaball said, who has a good relationship with Kevin Stefanski, and I'm sure she said there from her understanding, which means from her intel, what she's gathered throughout behind the scenes, private conversations. You heard what she said, the influence they put over Kevin Stefanski in his offense. You saw what Tony Grocer's report 2 years ago said. I showed you it was written in a letter in Jonathan Jones's article, what they said they were going to do on CBS Sports. And now you're hearing Sean King leaking out not leaking out, but telling you what Deshaun's camp's basically leaking out, which is there's a big disconnect within the building. It all goes together, right? It all makes sense. And it all leads back to one person, and that's Paul Podesta. And what he has done and how he has influenced, and Jimmy Haslam too, two of them, because Jimmy Haslam's the one that allowed this. He's the owner. But Paul Podesta was a guy who was with the Mets in I think it was 2016. The Mets weren't even going to fire him. He found two owners and he sold them in the NFL, two NFL owners, and he sold them on this plan, and they got hoodwinked. And they've bought into this guy's bullshit ever since. And respect to Quincy Carey, I know what he said earlier about how teams have, used analytics and stuff, and it's a trend in the NFL. And Bill Belichick used analytics. Yes, but respectfully, nobody had a Paul Podesta hovering over them. And you think Bill Belichick's going to let Paul Podesta? You think Robert Kraft would have allowed that? Hell no. You think Andy Reid's listening to Paul Podesta above him, telling him what to do with his offense? No. Analytics are tools. It's information. You use it as a tool, but it is not your biblical. It's not your philosophy. It's not your football Bible per se, or how you're going to attack, what your identity is, how you're going to attack a defense week in and week out, and what your standards are as an organization, and how you operate as an offense, right? It doesn't influence your game day stuff fully like it is here in Cleveland, if that makes sense. You guys know what I mean. And so that didn't go on, okay, in successful organizations. They don't do that. They don't have a guy, and Paul Podesta, he is the face of sports analytics. They read a movie about him, right? It was Moneyball. So to his credit, of course he's going to demand a higher role, because he's saying, well, I'm a guy that wrote a movie about me. I'm the face of sports analytics. I deserve a higher role. And we've seen him with higher roles in sports before. He took over the Dodgers at one point in time. And you can see this here. Paul Podesta was the GM of the Dodgers he took over in 2004. The Dodgers the year before were an 85-win team, right? So in 2004, his first season, they were 93-68, pretty good year. But he also made some pretty questionable trades in the middle of that year above this, and including trading one of the guys that was the heart and soul of a locker room at that time and that Dodgers team. He was heavily criticized for it. I think even players on the team, from what I read, didn't even like it. And it was a big thing. So they still make the playoffs that year. But then he comes back in 2005, and it says there, I'm going to skim down a little bit. October 29, 2005, Dodgers owner Frank McCourt fired Podesta, citing his desires to see the club win and that Podesta had not met those expectations. Reports surfaced that the real reason McCourt had fired Podesta was his inability to find satisfactory manager candidates to replace Jim Tracy. He was later replaced by Ned Colletti, who hired Grady Little as manager. Some have speculated that McCourt fired Podesta in response to the media criticism from LA Times sports columnists T.J. Simmers and Bill Plaschke. who were vehemently anti-Moneyball and referred to DePodesta privately as Google Boy, or jokingly as Google Boy, not privately, excuse me, jokingly. And so we've seen DePodesta before as a GM. Didn't really go great. I mean, they had some success, but there was dysfunction. And he couldn't identify a manager. I know when some of the trades he made, people questioned. Everywhere this guy's gone, I mean, the only real success. I mean, the Oakland A's thing was one of the most. It's been one of the most overhyped things. They didn't win the World Series that year. Anywhere Paulie Podesta's been, they've never won a championship. It's not like he's like some like savant walking around in sports, and that was all in baseball. Football is football is a combat sport, right? There's a lot more you have to understand if you're going to run an organization and or have this much influence over an organization. There is a lot more than just it's just the numbers are the same and all this. I mean, and I'm saying it like that because I got a clip. This is when DePodesta got hired. And I think I have this up. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up on the side here. When DePodesta got hired in 2016, this guy went up on the podium and explained how football and baseball really aren't that. There really is no difference. It'll work just fine, right? And here's Paul DePodesta in 2016 when he got hired. This is him explaining how it transitioned from the MLB to football. It'll be just fine.
Honestly, I think the biggest surprise is just how similar things are. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously the game is very different. There are nuances that need to be addressed, but fundamentally, they're really, really similar. We deal with a lot of the same issues. We're answering the same questions. It's still about people at the end of the day, making hopefully quality decisions consistently about people and trying to build a team and a culture. All that's very, very similar. And I think, I'd focused much more on just the differences of the game, when I was thinking about making the move. But since I've been here, all the rest of that, I think, is 90% of the equation, and that's been very, very comfortable for me.
Oh my gosh, the equation. Everything's a math equation in Berea now. But okay, some of the stuff he said there fundamentally made sense. I agree with. Like, yes, yes, team building, the people, and all that. But I'm looking at Jimmy Haslam right now. What the hell did this guy in his past before he came to Cleveland proven to you that he can do that in a completely different sport? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, this guy has completely, in my opinion, hoodwinked the Haslams. And we're the San Diego Browns now. We are the San Diego Browns. And it's sad because it's Dale Ryder hit the nail on the head here. It says here, how did the Browns break their offense so badly over the course of one off season? I mean, everything is broken. Fired Alex Van Pelt, who handled quarterbacks. Let Bill Callahan, who handled the bulk of the run game design, out of his contract to go to Tennessee. Then hired Ken Dorsey. The prosecution rest. Dale Ryder nailed it right on the head right there. You fired Alex Van Pelt, who was your quarterback coach as well, who did a nice job with the carousel of quarterbacks you had come through here since he's been here. You fired him. I understand Bill Callahan's son, it was a desire for his to go coach with his son in Tennessee. I get that's a little different. But like he said there, you let him out of his contract to go to Tennessee. They didn't even try to stop him. Like, they didn't, and when I say they, it's Paul DePodesta, maybe Andrew Berry. I don't know where Andrew Berry lies in all this, to be honest with you, because Andrew Berry was on the John Dorsey staff that, drafted a lot of those great players that we have now. And he also was with Howie Rosen. Andrew Berry's been around some pretty good, like, guys like Howie Rosen guys. And he was here with the Dorsey staff that were labeled all the football guys, even though, they nailed the draft, I think, a lot better back then in terms of just nailing more marquee players, especially offensively. But he was here so I don't know where Andrew Berry lies in all this. Darryl Ryder said on the Fan not too long ago that when the Deshaun Watson thing happened, he was told to get it done. So I don't know what that meant. Is Andrew Berry really just there? He's just does what he's told by ownership and basically Paul DePodesta? Is that what happens? But again, going back to Bill Callahan and going back to that report, remember this report that I showed you earlier? There could be coaching staff changes this offseason for the Browns. So, and this was going along with their air raid plan, right? Pete Podesta's air raid attack plan. Well, then why would you? You didn't even try to stop Bill Callahan, like Daryl said there. You just let him right out of his contract. Thanks, Bill. Nice, have fun with your son. People could say, well, that's just the courteous thing to do. Listen, man. You have the greatest, arguably the greatest O-line coach in the building. I know his son's on their side, but you got to at least give him a monster offer that he deserves, and he's that valuable. They didn't even try to do that. You know why they didn't try to do that? And I'd say they, in terms of possibly Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, and Jimmy Haslam. Hey, football guy. Hey, Alex Van Pelt. Hey, football guy, Bill Callahan. Going back to the grocery report where it said too, hey, football guys that don't want to go along with our shit, bye. Thank you. It's just a less headache for us, and we'll install people that'll go along and implement what we want done. And Ken Dorsey's that guy. Ken Dorsey was a guy, and going back to this here, like I said, Stefanski, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt will insist that their system is rooted in the running game. So Alex Van Pelt was not fully on board with this, clearly, when he was here. And knowing Bill Callahan and talking to guys before, listening to people that were coached by Bill Callahan personally, Bill Callahan was not going with that shit either. Clearly. No way in hell. Doesn't mean they're anti-analytics, but they're not letting some guy tell them what the hell they're going to do or they're fired. And that's exactly what happened to Alex Van Pelt. Alex Van Pelt got fired. And going back to that report, remember what, what's his name? Albert Breer said on 98.5 in New England, that when they fired Alex Van Pelt, there was some big problems in an organization, and why they fired Van Pelt. He didn't really deserve to get fired. Go back to see what Albert Breer, what he said on 98.5 and the Fan in New England. He said it back when they fired him, back in the offseason. And I played it on the show at that time, and I said, this is a big problem. It's clear as day. Go look what Albert Breer said. I'm telling you. I've given you guys there's so many sources around that are reporting on what's going on in Cleveland, and they're all basically saying the same thing. There's no control. DePodesta controls everything. There's no control with the coach. The coach doesn't control anything. The players, they can't play the game that it should be the way it should be played, because you got a guy upstairs, or he's not even upstairs. He's in San Diego, across the country, telling them what to do. He controls everything, and it's an absolute shit show. You didn't even try to get Bill Callahan because you wanted Bill Callahan gone. You wanted Van Pelt gone because you fired him, because they wouldn't go along with your bullshit. They're actual football guys. Go look at their backgrounds. Van Pelt was with the Packers for years at Favre, and he's got a pretty good football pedigree. Was a former player himself. Bill Callahan, we all know who he is, a legend. And Kevin Stefanski, he'll lose his job if he goes against him. And it's kind of like, in some ways, I'm kind of like, I understand it, but if I'm Kevin Stefanski, if Kevin Stefanski just resigned, I wouldn't blame him. Why should he stay here if he has no autonomy, like Aditi said, and pretty much everybody else is saying between the lines in these articles I'm showing you guys? If he doesn't have the autonomy to do what he wants, why should he stay? He should. If I was Kevin Stefanski, I would just resign. You know what? You guys want to create this dumpster fire? Have at it. I'll go somewhere else. Somebody will hire him, and he'll get another coaching job somewhere else. And have I been critical of Kevin Stefanski at times with some of his in-game decision-making, and maybe could he manage, head coach and play calling? Yes. But the more I looked into this week, the more grace I've had when I think about Kevin Stefanski now, because I'm kind of like, well, how can I expect this guy to make the right decision if he can't make it, if he has not the autonomy, the power to do it? It just doesn't make any sense. And it's just, people ask, people and Browns fans one all the time, why is Baker Mayfield playing so well down in Tampa? Right? Why didn't we? You hear Browns fans say we should have kept Baker. He would have been our guy. Baker Mayfield would not have been the same guy here that he is in Tampa right now. because the structure and what we're running off of now would not have allowed it. And you know who the most least analytical team in the league is? You know who that is? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Which NFL team is the least analytically advanced? The Buccaneers. I mean, it's clear as day. You know the most. Wait. It gets better. You know who the most advanced analytical team is? You know, the Cleveland Browns. They're the most advanced analytical team in the league, according to ESPN. And according to the same report, the Buccaneers are the least most advanced analytical team in the league. I wonder why Baker's playing so well. Good organization he's a part of. They have actual structure. No wonder why they have Super Bowls in their pocket. No wonder why Tom Brady chose them when he left a great organization in New England. And it's a bad precedent we're setting here because, yeah, we know Deshaun's cooked. Like Deshaun's not coming back to the guy he needs to be that we want him to be. It's not going to happen here. I don't think he wants to be here. And there was a report, coming out today from Florio of Pro Football Focus. Said, Deshaun Watson trade is nearly impossible unless he's willing to eat plenty of his remaining salary of 2025 and 26 to facilitate it. If he wants a fresh start badly enough, maybe he would. Now, who would want him? I don't know. Maybe if a team gets him for a cheap deal, and maybe there's a GM somewhere that thinks maybe I could take him for a low price and we can maybe salvage something. Maybe. And it's a rumor now that's being thrown out there that Deshaun really does want out of here. But obviously the contract thing is a whole different thing. And I think the Browns should want him out of here too if he don't want to be here. And I think his play is not worth obviously keeping around. So because I just think to me he's not gonna be the same guy. The more tape I watch, I question that. It's not gonna happen here. And but even if we get rid of Deshaun, though, like I said, we still got a major problem. And I think a bigger problem because we can get rid of a quarterback like we did last year. Deshaun got hurt last year. We put in Joe Flacco. We couldn't do the Joe Flacco story again this year, the way we're set up now. Because last year, like I said, Kevin Stefanski still had autonomy over his offense, and it was that old system. It was his system, and it was still ran the way he wanted it. It was good balance from organizationally up from the top down. That plan they presented that they showed at the end of 2022 in those articles, the air raid plan by DePodesta went into full effect this year, and they have complete control now. And it's why, like I said, it makes sense now why that contract negotiation with Stefanski was dragged out all the way to June. And it makes sense now why Kevin Stefanski didn't want to give up play calling too. Because I, in my personal belief, I think they wanted Kevin to give up the play calling to Dorsey as well. But I think Stefanski questioned this and does not like this philosophy change. I think, in my opinion, I think he doesn't like it. And I think he said, I think he probably leveraged them with the 2-time coach of the year and some of the successes he's had here. And he probably said, listen, I've been the best coach you guys have had since 99. I'm keeping the play calling. That's what I do. I'll let you do. You guys are going to do what you're going to do with the others, getting rid of guys on my staff and bringing in Ken Dorsey, who nobody else wanted. He was fired from Buffalo. We'll let you guys do your thing and tell me what to do, but I'm keeping the play calling because I think that's his way of having some control over it still. But again, it's not going to work because it doesn't mesh, obviously, like Sean King said. And it's so dysfunctional from the top down, all the way out to the field, literally, that it's not going to work. That's why we're 1-4. And it's like I said here, Marcellus Wiley did a reaction to the Browns on his YouTube page, and I left a comment on it, and I said, the Browns' problems are a lot deeper than just how bad the QB's play has been. We all know Deshaun's bad. Dysfunction all around, and it starts at the top. Can't be an organization that uses analytics as heavy as they do and expect to succeed. They also brought in Ken Dorsey to change the offense, yet Kevin Stefanski's calling plays at an offense he's never called before. Did Stefanski ever want to change his offense, or was he forced? ? Does he even have the autonomy to bench Watson? Why did you even hire Ken Dorsey to begin with? Of course they're 1-4, and Deshaun looks bad. So what I was saying there is what I was saying basically what I was saying presenting to you guys today. Of course the quarterback looks bad, even though I think he is bad now. But even let's say we put Jameis in there, I still think Jameis looks bad. He's not going to have the Joe Flacco story that we had last year. It's not going to happen because of the way we're set up. and we're 1-4 because of this. And Marcellus Wiley, another former NFL player who has, you've heard Sean King, you've heard Josh Cribbs, and now here's Marcellus Wiley. I think these guys know a thing or two about football, what really goes on in a locker room, what a locker room's really thinking. I've heard a lot of this stuff this week saying about, receivers and O-linemen they're not blocking purposely. They're driving past because they don't like Deshaun. Guys are dropping passes. Guys are missing blocks because there's a horrible culture in Cleveland right now because it's ran by a man in San Diego. And these players are smart. They know the game. I think a lot of players don't believe in what they're doing. Yes, we know Deshaun's bad. And yes, we know there probably are some guys that think, man, this dude's not hitting the basic stuff. He can't even read it. They see that. We know that. Right? That's one issue is Deshaun. But you have another issue as well. Just because you remove Deshaun, like Josh Cribbs said earlier, just because you put the kitchen out, the rest of the house is still on fire. And players know that. And this stuff's going to travel. The word travels throughout the league. People are going to start avoiding the Browns as long as Jimmy Haslam allows DePodesta to be here and have this power. Don't ever expect any success. And they're going to have a bad reputation amongst agents in the league when telling their players where to sign. Guys coming out in the draft with the same agents, coaches possibly coming here. And it's a bad road they're going down, a complete disaster. If they keep going down this road, they will be in the worst hole we've ever seen them since '99. Guaranteed. Because you're letting a guy across country that has no reason to have this much power in an NFL organization ruining your franchise. His philosophy doesn't work in the sport. I'm sorry. Analytics are a tool. I'm not anti-analytics. Analytics aren't bad is what I'm saying, but he should not have the power he has. But again, in 2016, he left his job with the Mets because he found two owners he convinced to hoodwink him, and he gets to sit out in San Diego and make all this money off of it and put all this influence on a franchise while he just sits back in his house in San Diego and makes the money. Unbelievable. And Marcellus Wiley responded to that. Again, what I was getting to, Marcellus said totally. The dysfunction starts at the top. Heavy reliance on analytics without a solid plan is a mistake, which is what we are. If Stefanski's still calling plays, why hire Dorsey? No surprise they're struggling at 1-4. And so even Marcellus Wiley says it. And so, we've heard many guys. And the worst part about all this, with as bad as Deshaun's playing, you can't get out of his contract either. And Zach Jackson, who I've actually met before, a really nice guy. Shout out to Zach Jackson. I don't know if I have that queued up here. Let me find it. He broke down too just how impossible it's going to be for them to get out of his contract. Like it's a rough road because you can't just Stefanski. If he did the autonomy, if he did have that to bench Deshaun, you're benching a guy making $230 million and you just put him on the bench. He's just sitting there. Do you even want that guy in your locker room at that point? Because he probably wouldn't want to be there at all. It'd be like the Odell situation again. So it's like they're in a bad spot. And how do you fix it? I'm going to get to how I think they should fix it in a second. I don't know if I have the Zach Jackson stuff. I apologize. If I have to, I'll send it to myself again. But I'll get to my last point here, though. What would I do at this point right now? The only fix I see, guys, right now we're going to have a top 3 pick in the draft, no matter what we do. If Deshaun take him off the field, put Jameson, we're going to have a top 3 to 5 pick in the draft this spring. All right, that's where we're heading. That's how bad we're going to be. And so, let me see. Okay, I got it right here, guys. So I'm gonna finish up with this. I appreciate you guys for tuning in this long today. Again, I wanted to do this longer presentation because there's a lot to get into here, and I just think it's such a complex, bad situation with the Browns right now that I wanted to kind of break all this down today, piece by piece. And I do this as a hobby. This is free. If you're new here, please subscribe. My main thesis on this channel and main foundation channel is actually mental health related for my story, overcoming anxiety and panic. So if you're interested in that stuff, we'll be getting back to more of that down the road, especially in the bye week. I'm going to have something planned for you guys. But I do like football. I played football, national championship when I was in 7th, 8th grade against older competition with some guys, and had to retire early in 10th grade because of my anxiety, and I wasn't able to play football anymore, or any sport rather. But it's always been a passion of mine. It's why I'm passionate about the Browns being from Ohio. Anybody from Ohio knows how passionate we are as fans. So it means a lot to me, and it's just fascinating to me too. The more I cover the Browns now, just how you see this year in particular, all the stuff I broke down to you guys today, just how dysfunctional it really has always been. And here's the clip here I found, excuse me, from Zach Jackson. I'll finish up with this. Where do they go from here? And I've met Zach Jackson before. Actually, Zach Jackson is good friends with my high school coach, Dan Larum. He came and spoke to us when I was there, and I met him on the side for a couple minutes. Really nice guy, and I like his reporting. So here's Zach Jackson. Where do they go from here with this Deshaun contract?
It's time to move on from Deshaun Watson, who's been a complete failure for this organization. But it's not that easy. It's fully guaranteed, guys. If they cut him today, they would also have to cut $60 million more of players just to be under the cap, just to play a game on Sunday, right? And it's still over 100 in dead money next year. So it's not feasible, right? So I don't know the way out. And it's going to take the kind of long-term planning, although obviously the opposite that they thought they've been doing. This front office could only operate under it's going to work, could only say, hey, we have to say that it's going to work. And it's just not working. So their options are limited, guys, and it has to work. And it just hasn't. And even if they trade Amari Cooper and are able to acquire a 3rd round pick, which I think is feasible only because Amari's immediate cap hit, it would be very small for the acquiring team. They would take on $22 million in dead money next year. And they're using dead money as a weapon. It's been part of their strategy, but that would just be the first part of the build. And eventually, there's probably going to have to be a whole expansion-ish teardown here to start again. And it's perfectly fine on October 7th to imagine what they'll be doing in the top 3 or 4 of the draft next year. And probably that has to be quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree with him, But again, to that last point there, do I want who's in charge now? These are the same people, remind you, that made the trade. So if you're mad at them for making the trade, what confidence do you have in them nailing the draft pick right? And do I trust my draft pick in these people's hands to develop a kid out of college, a rookie in the NFL taking over a franchise? Do I trust them to get that right and get him where he needs to be? No. They'll blow that up too. They'll ruin that because of who you have in charge now and what Jimmy Haslam allowed happen this year. This season, and yes, Deshaun Watson's a big part of it, how bad he's been playing. But the way they allowed this season was doomed to begin with because of who allowed all this stuff to happen in the offseason. And that starts with Jimmy Haslam. And until that changes, and the only thing I see to salvage the season or make it somewhat better, and what changes they can do right now, like Zach said there, it's not easy to get out of that contract. Unless Deshaun wants to get out so bad, maybe they can find a suitor and he'll eat some of that money, like Florio said. That you're stuck with him. And you can't bench a guy like him because it'll become a problem. And do you want to pay that guy that kind of money just to not be there? To me, that's not good. And even if you put Jameis Winston at quarterback, you still have a bad offense that your coach has no autonomy over anymore, and he's calling plays in a system he doesn't believe in. So it's still it's like Josh Cripps said again. Yes, you can move, Deshaun Watson the kitchen, but the rest of the house is still on fire. So how do you fix this? Only one way to fix this, and that's for Jimmy Haslam to admit that he was wrong. Not that it's that for people saying Kevin Stefanski's admit that he's wrong. It's him versus Jimmy Haslam needs to admit that he got hoodwinked. He was wrong. You don't have to say it publicly, but you did. Get rid of DePodesta or tell him, hey, bro, you got a weaker role, and give Kevin Stefanski back and Andrew Berry even possibly. But I'll say Kevin Stefanski this right now. Give him back his team and what you paid him to do. Let him, and if he wants to go back to his old offense and get Dorsey out of here, then maybe put Chad O'Shea there or Tommy Rees. I would say Chad O'Shea maybe. Let Kevin Stefanski do what he wants to do with his team. And if he wants to bench Deshaun, let him bench Deshaun. And that's up for you to figure out the rest after that. Let Kevin Stefanski have autonomy back. And maybe let Kevin go back to running more of his scheme. Again, the game you won this year was when you used the most heavy sets, which like last year, and that's the game you won. And I mean, it's clear. The only way I see this working this year, and maybe getting Deshaun back to even playing serviceable ball, is let Kevin do what he wants to do with his offense again. Let him go back to what he wants to do with his old scheme, and let them go from there. You got Nick Chubb coming back, like Aditi said. He's the best player on your offense. Go through him first. Utilize the run game. Work through the run game. Go back into more play action, and maybe you'll actually run the dagger concept correctly, and start. It might actually get executed properly too. Just saying, and let him do his job. Until that happens, as long as we can keep swapping out quarterbacks and drafting guys all we want, nothing's gonna change. Yeah, we may win a couple more games. Yeah, those layups may get made in those plays, but in the end, it's still gonna fall short because you got a guy telling your coach what to do. That is a major, major, major problem. And if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'd walk away. I wouldn't blame him. I'd resign right now, walk away. But that's my take on it, guys. It's going to be one hell of a rest of the season, that's for sure. Unfortunately, I wish I could up here and give you guys some positive news. I wish we were breaking down film right now, talking about how we're going to be win the division this year and stuff, but we got to sit here and do all this. It took me this long today, to break all this down because it's that dysfunctional and that bad. And so let me know what you guys think. Like I said, come catch us on our Sunday lives. You can even come up here and interact with us on the show and give us your take and opinion. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section. What is your guys' opinion on all this? What do you think they should do? Like, subscribe, share all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.